As we mentioned, we've had a little bit of news crossing the wires moments ago as everybody's watching very closely the Supreme Court discussions over the issue of same-sex marriage. It has the potential to be an explosive decision. And moments ago, this is the little tidbit that we got. It's very tough to read into these tea leaves, as you know. But Justice Anthony Kennedy, who is often, thought to be a swing vote in many of these issues, said this. He said, quote, the definition of marriage has been the same for millennia. Quote, it is very difficult for the court to say that we know better. So let's bring in our guests. Heather Hansen, a trial attorney, and Bob Bianchi, a trial attorney as well, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. Welcome to both of you. We're going to also talk about the Freddie Gray case, but we wanted to get your thoughts on this breaking news first. Heather, what's the significance, do you think, of that comment?
If they're going to find that gay marriage the bans are unconstitutional, it's going to be one of two ways. It's either going to be under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to say that marriage is a right and therefore you can't take it away, or it's going to be under equal protection to say that the homosexuals, gays, lesbians are entitled to the same rights as heterosexuals. That goes to whether or not marriage is a right. That's going to be very difficult for these justices to say, because if they say overall, broadly, marriage is a right, where does that end? How old do you have to be to have that right? Do you have the right to have many wives? Do you have the right to have many husbands? So I think that question goes to those concerns.
Interesting. Bob, what do you think? What do you read into Justice Kennedy's comment?
I think after arguing many times before an appellate division in the Supreme Court, you got to be very careful with the way a judge asks a question.
Right.
Sometimes they ask the question that may be the opposite of what they're thinking, just to see what the response is going to be so that they can pin that down in their opinion. So I really don't take anything by the way the question is asked, although he makes a good point as to why it is, after all this time, we need to redefine something that has been defined for so many millennia.
There has to be a compelling reason to do that, and supporters of same-sex marriage would say that there absolutely is. So we'll see. Thank you very much, you guys, for weighing in on that breaking news. We want to also get your thoughts on this case that has caused really the chaos that has erupted over the death of Freddie Gray, who died when he was in police custody. Here's what we know about his case. He had frequent run-ins with the law. He was arrested following a foot chase, and he was on a bike, according to some reports, at one point in his neighborhood. The video that was released of the incident shows that Gray was injured while in custody, and then he died on April 19th following a severe spinal injury 1 week after his arrest. 6 police officers who were with him that day are now suspended from their duties as all of this investigation continues. Baltimore City officials say that their investigation will end on Friday, allowing prosecutors to decide whether to file charges against these police officers. Bob, your thoughts on this in terms of what we know so far?
Well, I have a couple of problems with it already. First of all, I don't think a police agency should be investigating its own. Well, I think the police commissioner has done a very transparent job. He's done a very squared away job, as we would say in this profession. As a former head county prosecutor, the minute there's an in-depth police custody case, the prosecutor's office or an independent agency should be immediately involved in the case. And the greatest thing that concerns me about this is there's been evidence lost already by way of videotapes that have not been secured and now have been taped over. Significant things. That's basic investigation 101 when you go to a crime scene when there's a death. You canvass the area for witnesses, you canvass the area for videotapes so that evidence is not destroyed. It's very disconcerting. I think they're going to have a problem. Without any doubt in my mind, there's going to be civil liability here. The idea that he was not restrained properly with a seatbelt, and in the end, while he was in police custody and they have complete control of him, he ultimately comes out with significant and serious injuries like he did, it could very well lead the prosecutor to be looking towards a reckless manslaughter, or if they find out that this was a purposeful rough ride scenario, a murder case.
I mean, no matter what, it's the police's responsibility to safely transport this suspect to the station, correct?
No matter what, and there's no defense here. In past cases, similar cases, you've seen the defense of self-defense. That is absolutely out the window here. The biggest issue is that there were no cameras on these policemen. There had been some legislation that had been vetoed by the mayor to get cameras on these policemen. It is just more and more signs that we need this to have evidence in these types of cases.
And I'd like to add one thing to this that's really disturbing. It's kind of like what Heather is saying right here. Why they don't have a video camera in a police van, a prisoner transport van in today's day and age, and I know in my county they all had them, so that one, it protects the officers that are doing the right job. And now we don't know what went on in that van, and we have to rely on testimony from people who have a very strong motive to obviously exonerate themselves.
Thank you both. Good to have you here.
My pleasure.